It's the Role Models Podcast, episode 5. If this is the first time you've listened to it or you've accidentally come across it, hello, my name is Jared Walsh. I am your host, and it's pretty simple. It's a positive podcast designed to talk about positive people doing positive things. We're surrounded by lots of negativity in the world, so I thought, let's talk to some sweet people who are doing some pretty cool things that you may not know about. So my focus is to chat to elite people, and when I say the word elite, I mean they're seen as elite performers like athletes, entrepreneurs, businessmen and women and people in the media. You know all that. You know what they do in their public life, but what about their private life? For example, in episode 4, I was lucky enough to have a chat to the brand new captain of the Hawthorn Football Club, Jared Ruffhead, and he's about to lead the team into action for the 2017 AFL season. And I mean, Ruffy's a natural leader. He's been part of the leadership group for ages now, but he's officially the captain. Is it a bit different?
I think that's the beauty of our club and the job that I've got is that I haven't had to change much. Only that the fact that the club has changed in terms of personnel, but other than that, it's as normal as what it has been over the previous 13 years that I've been there.
It's also a huge milestone in Jared Ruffhead's life because it's been really well documented. He spent almost 18 months out of football after being firstly diagnosed with melanoma on his lip, but then finding some spots on his lungs. But the amazing thing I found out about this chat with Jared Ruffhead is that he wasn't diagnosed with melanoma during the summer, when you think we're exposed to the sun probably more than ever.
You know, the thing with me is that I found out both times, one about my lip and two, the second diagnosis were in May, June, July. So it's not the months people would actually think that, you know, that's when you could get melanoma spots or little things that pop up.
I've listened to that interview so many times because Ruffy is such an inspirational person, and I wanted to thank all of you for listening and passing on your kind words as well, because it's one of the only chats he's done about his illness, and of course he's a busy man going into the 2017 AFL season. So I highly recommend you head back to episode 4, have a listen. It's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on social media. After you do that, or if you've done it, what about right now we get into episode 5 of Role Models? Yes? Okay, let's do it. Mental health. It's something we don't talk enough about. I mean, everybody's at risk of going through mental health issues. There's so many different mental health issues as well, and so many stigmas attached to it. This is why in episode 5 of Role Models, I was really fortunate to catch up with not a 1-time, not a 2-time, but a 3-time NBL championship player from the Perth Wildcats. And they've recently just won the championship against the Illawarra Hawks out of nowhere. The man I speak of, he is the number 4 for the Wildcats, and his name is Greg Heyer. Now, not only is he an amazing basketballer, as I said, he's won the championship 3 times. It's pretty sweet. But what I love about Greg is the work he's doing behind the scenes, out of the spotlight. It's getting very close to being in the spotlight because he's doing some amazing work with his wife, and they have developed a program called A Stitch in Time. We're going to talk about that. We're going to find out how Greg got his start being an ambassador for programs in regards to mental health. We'll talk about mentoring and how they managed to save 2 lives before it was too late. It's really important that you have a listen to this chat because, as I said, mental health is something that we all experience directly or indirectly. That's why it's really special that I got the chance to spend some time with my next guest. Episode 5 of Role Models, it's Greg Heyer. Greg Heyer, did you want a fun fact to start off the Role Models podcast? And I think you'll be really impressed with this.
I would love a fun fact.
You're actually the reason I started this podcast.
Oh, there you go. Talk to me about it.
All right, let me explain why. Because you are is it a 3-time championship player for the Perth Wildcats in the NBL?
That is correct, sir.
All right, and the most recent one only a few weeks ago against the Illawarra Hawks, which we'll get to in a second. But I remember like it was yesterday. The Perth Wildcats were playing against the Adelaide 36ers here in South Australia, and, you know, I grew up hating you because you were a member of the opposition. And then I think you got in touch via social media and you passed comment on my MCing, and I thought, oh no, he's going to have a crack at me. But you actually gave me some really nice feedback about it, and I thought, well, I can't hate this guy anymore, even though he plays for Perth. He said something really kind. I want to find out more about him. And then I found out who you were. You know, you do some work at Nova, the radio station in Perth, and you're doing amazing work behind the scenes, which we'll get to later. So thank you for giving me the inspiration.
Mate, I greatly appreciate it. I actually remember that moment because, as always, Adelaide is a very tough place to play, a very intimate, intimidating, not intimate setting. Sometimes the crowd does get intimate. But No, I remember it very well because I think, well, you were doing an incredible job, and I think they were there were times where they weren't minor premiers. So I know an emceeing job is pretty hard to get the crowd involved, but you got them on board, and so yeah, I always thought, why not? As my mum always said, if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say it. But as my opinion, if you've got some feedback, some positivity, you may as well give it as well.
No, I really appreciate it. So on basketball, congratulations. Is this the sweetest championship you've won? Because through the year, and it was an amazing NBL season where the Adelaide 36ers finished minor premiers. They were on the bottom of the ladder for a long time. Your team, the Perth Wildcats, were at the bottom at some stage as well. And no one really expected you guys to click. But as the Perth Wildcats always do, you ended up taking away the championship rings.
Yeah, it's tough to measure which championship is sweeter. I think when you look at it, obviously the very first one is, like to overcome, obviously we had 2 grand final losses, so to get that first one was quite nice, and my impact in the game, I think James Ennis got in foul trouble, so from being, I guess, a selfish standpoint, that obviously was quite nice, and to get that first one. Obviously the second one was huge. We had a horrible season the following year, and I got injured, so it was good. But this one, in terms of, I guess, the scenario, and you look at storylines, no doubt it's been one of the more challenging of years. I've never experienced a changeover or an overhaul of imports as we did. We had two of them, and it's exactly right. I remember at Christmas time we always joke about it. Me and Damo, the captain of the team, we were I was joking that we should be on Seek in the next few days because we might be unemployed in the off season because our playoff streak would be over. And I had a couple of messages from mates saying, like we're at the bottom of the ladder, we're paying I think $14 in the bookies and whatever it was, and I'm not a gambling man, but I told him to get on us because I just felt like if we got on at the right sort of time, it would be good. And, Bryce Cotton was unbelievable, and he comes in, and obviously we got healthy, and, momentum's an incredible thing, and we just played our best basketball at the right time, and things fell our way.
I reckon Bryce Cotton would have won the NBL MVP if he played throughout the whole season, and it would have been great to see him go up against Jerome Randall. But the Perth Wildcats are really the envy of every team in the NBL because you not only get amazing fans consistently, they're loud, you also have consistent sponsorship, which is quite rare in the NBL, and I think most importantly, you have consistent players. I think that with the NBL now, it's really difficult to get attached to players like we used to in the 90s here in Adelaide with, say, a Brett Maher at the 36ers or an Andrew Gaze at the Melbourne Tigers or a James Crawford at the Wildcats because players move around so much, but you guys have managed to keep that core group of, say, a Redditch, Knight, Martin, yourself, and a couple of other players to really get the fans connected to, but also for you guys to gel and other players can really step into that group. Do you feel that's an advantage that you have?
Yeah, huge. I think with that as well, there's also been a culture that's been established. You've got, a few guys coming in. This is much probably the first year that we've had about 4 or 5 new sort of faces. But when you've got your core group of guys that really strongly believe in the values and uphold them to the utmost of their abilities, that's powerful. Any guy coming in, they've got to buy in quite quickly. And on that, like I grew up in Perth and I could identify with, the Scott Fishers, the Graces, the Vlahovs. These guys had been, Eric Watterson, who a guy I look up to. These guys have been, they're synonymous with the name of the Perth Wildcats. And I think that's what, I guess, the current crop of players is really trying to establish as well. It's all good, we really want to win these championships, but you want to be, 10 years down or 15 years time. You want to hear, guys going, that core group of guys, the Perth Wildcats, and then the legacy that they go with. And, that's huge for us. I think, we know that no team's going to be the same from year in, year out, but if you can sort of get that belief amongst the group, and some of these guys have been recruited, I've been recruited to other clubs at times, but it's more so knowing that you want to be in a professional organisation that gets the best out of you on and off the court, and as well knowing that I can hold Damo accountable as he can do with me because we've been through so much, and we also believe in the values that we uphold.
One of the biggest noises in an NBL game and a basketball game is not just when someone hits a game-winning three-pointer, a member of the opposition fouls out, or something amazing happens like an and one. I love the noise when a development player gets onto the court and hits a basket or does something special. The crowd really get behind him, even if the team's up by 50. As soon as something happens with a development player, it's amazing. And I think just to leave us here with the basketball chat, people don't know the role of a development player because they're not guaranteed court time. Their salary is probably pretty shit, but they have to commit the same hours, the same blood, sweat and tears as the most highly paid import, and you've come from that position. What can you tell us about that? Because it's not really a desirable spot, but in the end, it's an opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. And I look back at my development player year as such as, I guess, one that provided a platform for my pathway. And we talk about contracts. I can rightfully say I was on $6,000 or something. My very first pay slip. I look at it and I was stoked to get $6,000. Don't get me wrong, it was my first sort of paycheck, but my sort of hourly rate was about $2.30, and I sort of laughed at that, thinking, oh, that's sort of quite unique. But in regards to that, you do everything that the club that a professional player does, and so. Off the court, you're in the gym, you're doing the extra rehab, you're doing the scouting. And in terms of your responsibility, you have to challenge those starters, the bench guys, to be better. I mean, the development players have played an integral role in terms of preparing us for the next opposition or making sure that guys don't slack off. But for my development player, that sort of was a lot of growth. I changed my body and I was getting that money, $6,000, and I worked 3 jobs as well to be able to, keep a living and keep on building for my future, so I could grow, get a house, and obviously make sure my wife were going forward. But that, I guess, provided a lot of benefits, in terms of time management and making sure everything was done correctly. And look. I think a lot of players now sort of are quite naive. They think it's sometimes easy. I was naive when I came into league. I thought I was definitely, played in a successful collegiate system for a number of years and thought I could walk in. But the step up from not only the semi-professional leagues or the collegiate level is remarkable. And so to have that year of actually learning to be professional, my behaviours, from nutrition to strength to recovery and being on the court, it's massive. And I always have a special bond with, I guess, development players coming through because I know how tough it is. And so when those guys step on the court and they impact the game, I think Mason Bragg did a fantastic job in his moments. But even like a guy like Corbin Rowe. A lot of expectations placed upon him, but in terms of the criticism that he copped, but he was still able to bring it every single day. I have a huge amount of respect for guys that are willing to work every single day and hopefully impact come game time.
Mate, I wanted to take this podcast to our second half, which is something I'm really passionate about, and the whole reason I got started doing this, and that is people with profile like yourself, a 3-time championship player for the Perth Wildcats. A lot of people dream about getting 1, and you have 3 of them now. But you're doing a lot of work behind the scenes, which is now starting to get the publicity it deserves, and that's with your work in A Stitch in Time that focuses on mental health. But I wanted to go back a little bit beforehand because you were doing an ambassadorial role in regards to another mental health organisation, is that right?
Yeah, correct. You focus.
Yeah, and what's that all about?
Yeah, so I established. I guess I've been doing. When I was a development player, I was working 3 jobs: Wheelchair Sports WA. I was a youth support worker at a number of youth centres, and I was doing a lot of work. And so I sort of started gaining a bit of a passion of working, I guess, in that front. And it's quite known that the Wildcats do a tremendous amount of work in the community. And our development officer, Katie Reid, at the time, I sort of opportunity. We do a number of clinics, but what struck to me is, every time I go I went to Princess Margaret Hospital to visit the Starlight Rooms, or, we sometimes, read to classes or engage in actual educational workshops. I just got a real buzz out of it. And so I saw an opportunity there as my role grew within the Wildcats. I saw an opportunity there where I could link in with a charity organisation I'm passionate about, and that was Youth Focus. And so they're a mental health organisation in WA that provide counselling for at-risk kids or teenagers experiencing any sort of mental illness such as depression, anxiety, and not a crisis helpline, but they provide that one-on-one help, which is huge. I mean, I've used mentoring in a huge regard in my own profession, and so for me that was a real just a no-brainer to connect with them. And obviously now, as Stitching Times of my own charity has grown, but I still link in with Youth Focus because what they're doing is huge in that mental health space and the capacity that they've really built there.
When you did start, what do you think the differences are now with mental health in regards to what it was and what it is now? Or is it just something simply that more people are starting to finally talk about it?
Yeah, I think, when I became involved sometime, the reason why I got involved was a very close friend of mine was struggling, and to me, I thought to myself, well, I can't really give any advice. I mean, it's obviously, lending your ear and having a bit of a chat, but I wanted to become a bit more educated, a bit more knowledgeable in that regard. And so that's why I linked with Youth Focus, so I could get some guidance in that regard. And I think 5-6 years ago, when I first sort of inklings, there was a lot of stigma behind mental health or mental illness, and the discussions were there. And more you spoke to people and thought, yeah, they've obviously got a similar story. They've, or they know of someone. Now it's become extremely prominent. I think I look as my sort of role in my charity grows. So my responsibility in my charity grows. I see articles nearly daily about someone's struggle or a professional athlete that comes out and saying that they suffered from depression while they're going through their career pathway. And I think obviously the taboo, as you may say, has obviously been lessened. The stigma has obviously been lifted a little bit. I think more so now the awareness around mental health is at a sky high. It's prominent. Everyone knows about it. The statistics are alarming. And I think that's where the landscape of mental health is now starting to shift. It's more so not around awareness, but it's more so about the prevention of mental illness or the treatment, which I think is quite important. So, yeah, look, I think as this grows, more so from talking from a sporting organisation sense, we'll see more emphasis providing support for these young kids or professional athletes because, as we hear daily now, people are struggling. There's some devastating effects and it really impacts not only the individual but the collective group around those people.
I reckon we live in a really cynical world. I want to use the example of Buddy Franklin, not last AFL season but the season before. He had to take the final series off because of mental health reasons, and straight away everybody jumped to the conclusion that it was drug related or that he was in trouble within the football club, instead of people going, well, actually, these athletes are under a huge amount of pressure. They live their life in the public eye. And how hard do you think, Greg, it is for an athlete to speak openly with people that he trusts? Because no matter what, if you do come out and say, I have some issues, you're exposing yourself to the public, and especially with social media, people are going to be cynical. Oh,
no doubt. Not even professional athletes. I think any individual, I hear many times people have come out and said, oh, look, I'm suffering from anxiety or depression, or I have mental health illness, and that automatically skepticism is there. It's seen as an easy way. No questions will be asked, and unfortunately that brush will always be painted on, I think, because people don't have that knowledge. I don't think if I had a conversation with my wife regarding mental health or mental illness, I don't think she has the knowledge to, I guess, diagnose someone. So there's always going to be that level of skepticism. And when you talk about professional sports, we're hearing, the amount of former athletes that are having documented issues, and obviously Buddy Franklin, straight away I heard that and I thought, what, at least he's honest and he's confronting it and good on him. But straight away the next person I spoke to said, no, it's drugs. It's a way that, there's no questions going to be asked. And that's real unfortunate. You obviously don't think that's the case, but that's where that stigma is associated. Why would people go? And for athletes, especially professional athletes, there's plenty of pressure on those people that all they know what to do is to succeed. We're goal-oriented people. We always want to achieve the highest we can, and more so we're seeing it once an athlete gets done playing at a professional level. There's a massive drop-off. There's no support. There's no, we're obsessive by nature, really. And so when we're not competing at the highest level anymore, there's not really much we're really looking forward to. And so I think there has to be a greater emphasis, not only in professional sports, but in grassroots sports, that there has to be an emphasis on the importance of mental health and providing that there's a support system in place. I mean, if you're in school and you're struggling at maths or science, you're going to have a bunch of teachers willing to help you out. But in the case of a professional athlete, if we can be frank, if someone raised their hand and said, "Oh, look, I'm struggling," I don't think there's adequate enough resources that allow people to sort of seek out treatment when they really do need some help. And I think that's, going back to that point, I think it's really important now, peer-to-peer mentoring and allowing sports a fantastic platform for people to communicate and engage and to discuss with each other. And, there's nothing wrong with a guy being honest and saying, "Look, I've got a problem," and I think one of the more courageous things is as a guy or your best mate saying, "Let's go have a coffee or a beer and just discuss it, and let's have a bit of a chin wag," and I think that's more powerful than anything else, really.
I wanted to ask about your event that you're holding very soon. Just before that, though, I read on the website of A Stitch in Time that you guys saved 2 lives. I don't want to get into the specifics of it because obviously a lot of that stuff is all personal. But can I ask, so were they young adults or kids?
Yeah, look, I don't obviously want to blow my own horn here, but, I've developed a number of relationships, where I mentor young kids, and the stories are, at times quite, it's quite tough, My own personal upbringing in my life, it wasn't the easiest childhood or teenage, adolescent years. I went through a stage of antisocial behaviour and dabbled in drugs and alcohol, something I'm obviously not proud of, but I acknowledge my past and obviously try and shape my own life and obviously shape teenagers now. And so for me, I guess my purpose is to try and assist these kids that don't have that support system around them. And so, fortunately with my profile and being quite out there in a way, I've had a number of people, parents and teenagers, contact me asking if I could mentor them or, just develop a relationship. And, I'm lucky. I don't know if I was the key to saving a couple of kids' lives or a number of kids' lives, but I hope I played a part in their decision making. And look, I've continued to this day to develop relationships and try and help out. I think the biggest thing a lot of these individuals don't have is trust to another party. And if I can play a part in trying to assist in that, that's massive. And that's a huge motivation for me. And I guess my purpose and my own charity's purpose, really.
Yeah, that's something I noticed as well. I've done some mentoring for young Indigenous Australians, and it's something that we forget that yes, they are just kids, but they also are really exposed to mental illness as well, and it does probably stem from their childhood, which is something that we can't forget. Now, you guys are having an event, which I've seen on social media. You've got some big names coming as well. So for the people who are listening in Perth or people who commute there for business who want to go and experience it, what can you tell us about this event?
Yeah, we ran it last year, and it's, look, mate, it was an awesome initiative we started last year. It's called the Rise Up Gala, which starts, based around our mentoring program that we do with Indigenous kids and the mentoring that we do in the Kimberley region, and it's all in Perth. And very lucky that there's some fantastic, identities or professional sporting athletes, media personalities that really have jumped on board. So basically we have a gala dinner at Fraser's restaurant up in Kings Park, and look, just like me, mate, it's everything's a bit more unique. So the waiters themselves, people that serve the food are sporting personalities. So last year we obviously had Brad Hogg, Damien Martin, Luke Shuey, Nathan Morris from Nova, and so Olivia Vivian, Blair Evans, 2 Olympians. So, we were really lucky, and this year we'll keep unveiling ways that we got, but we've already got Damien Mount again, Nathan Morris, but Nick Natanui's on board, Luke Shuey, a couple of Dockers, Lockie Neal. So look, we're super lucky again to have, I guess, the collaboration. Athletes that want to collaborate and are willing to take part. It's nothing, more humbling to get individuals that don't care about their profile or don't care about that, don't ask a cent of payment, don't expect anything in return. They're just willing to help out and jump in where they can. They're amazing personalities, and this money goes. Last year we raised over $30,000, of which went back to Youth Focus. This year, hopefully, this will allow us to sustain our programs and keep on pushing forward. We've got real good pilot projects getting established here too, and it is awesome. It gave me goosebumps the week leading up to it was huge. I mean, I've never done any event planning as such, but definitely had some tears after the event, knowing that the compassion that some of these athletes shown that now are a part of the Stitch in Time family, and actually will be mentoring kids in due time too. So yeah, it's a fantastic night. It's on June 17th. And as I said, it's a unique opportunity. You get to rub shoulders with a lot of high profile individuals. They get to serve you food, they pour the drinks, they do all that sort of stuff. And Lockie Reed, who's the second best MC behind you, is the MC on the night. And we do have a sort of a panel as such, and it gives those guys they're a bit more a chance for them to be authentic and not get the stock standard cliche answers that they give to media. And that was a lot of fun to hear some Olympic stories and tales from professional athletes.
Well, that's good. That's exactly what you've given me as well, Greg. I really appreciate it, mate. And I really encourage people to find out more information on Facebook as well, because I know you've been sharing it on Facebook. But all the best with it. Thank you for being so open and honest. And let's hope that the Adelaide 36ers fans and every NBL fan now can get an understanding of the person you are. I reckon it's been a great chat. You are definitely a role model, and you've explained that throughout the whole chat as well. So Greg Hire, 3-time championship winner for the Perth Wildcats. Most importantly, though, doing great things with your wife, and now you have a new child in the world, in the community. Thank you for your time.
Mate, my absolute pleasure, and hopefully I can just have a couple of videos like you're putting up with my son Sully, and then my world will be rock solid.
Yeah, just keep your son away from my daughter, okay, mate?
Sounds good, buddy. Appreciate it, mate.
He's a pretty incredible human being, isn't he, Greg Hire? If you want to find out more about A Stitch in Time, they do have a website, which is stitchintime.org.au, and all of the details about his gala event will be on Facebook as well. Thank you so much for having a listen. All of Greg's social media details I'll chuck in the description of this podcast as well. But as I said at the start, it's really important we talk about these things. Mental health, not just in adults, not just in athletes, but also in kids. Mentoring is something which I really enjoy doing. I want to do a lot more of too. If you get the opportunity to do it, you can change people's lives, and as Greg spoke about, you can save people's lives. If you did enjoy listening to the podcast, give us a like on iTunes. You can rate it as well. Give us a thumbs up on Stitcher. Please share it on social media, and keep talking about the positivity in the world that my guests over the past 5 episodes have passionately expressed that they're doing. Hey, as I said, I really appreciate all the kind words and feedback I've been getting about this podcast. Someone came up to me in a park in Adelaide and said, "Hey, Jared, you don't know me, but I love the Role Models podcast and what you're doing with this positivity, and that's the reason I'm doing it. There's so many negative things going on in the world. Let's talk about the positive things and change the world for the better." Cheers for listening. I'll catch you at episode 6.